There's another Biden-Harris tell-all book coming out next week, and even the people who finally want to tell it all can't get it right. Hey, everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott. This is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, so as you know, there's been this flood of tell-all books by various reporters who decided after the election maybe they could tell the truth about Biden's condition, Harris's quality as a candidate, all the stuff they didn't think we should know when there was an actual election going on. So all of these books have the same thing in common. You get journalists admitting what all of us knew in 2020 or maybe 2023 at the latest, but they've got juicy quotes in there, right? The tell-all insider stuff that get people to buy the book. The latest is from David Plouffe. Now, he's a super genius behind both of Barack Obama's presidential campaign. So this guy, he knows a thing or two about how to sell an empty suit. He was also put in charge of the Kamala Harris campaign last summer. So
Really?
yeah, this new book, it's Original Sin. It's by Alex Thompson and Jake Tapper. I think we've talked about it before a couple of weeks ago. But there are quotes that are new from Pluff. Pluff said that, and this is a quote, trying to defeat Donald Trump in just 107 days was an effing nightmare. He said, it's all about Biden. He totally effed us. But of course,
No.
Pluff didn't say he didn't say F. He said the word. So, Bill, this is the same book where Jake Tapper finally reveals the truth about Biden's mental and physical decline, all that stuff. But that aside, didn't Biden F the Dems when he chose Kamala Harris as his running mate 4 years earlier?
Well, yes. The president did a prestigious amount of effing during his 4 years in office. You know what I find ironic about that is he says, it's virtually impossible to beat Donald Trump in 107 days. If Kamala Harris had entered the race 21 days before the election, she might have won.
Yeah.
True. She might have won because the first 2 months after her announcement, with all the media telling us that she was, the second coming of Barack Obama and how unbelievably smart she was, it took a month or two for people to see enough of her to realize what an idiot she was. I completely disagree with that take. I think if he had started with her earlier, she would have lost by more.
Or to put California in play.
Yeah, it's a completely disingenuous thing to say. We don't have enough time to fool the American people. It's like, no, you had too much time. You had them fooled for a month there, and so I just this sounds to me like a kind of guy who's trying to preserve his reputation for being a real whippersnapper when it comes to being able to move the levers of political power, and he failed rather dramatically with Kamala Harris. But look, let's just face facts. I mean, we all just come out. Nobody could have won with Kamala Harris, and nobody could have won with Hillary Clinton either. One of the most profound things I think that people would agree upon about the 2016 election was that not only was Donald Trump the only person that could beat Hillary Clinton, it was like Hillary Clinton was the only person that Donald Trump could have beaten. You know what I mean? It was this weird two-way dynamic where she was so spectacularly unpopular that people were ready to take a chance on the outsider. And by the time you get to 2024, the new Democratic candidate is so spectacularly unpopular and unserious that large numbers of Democrats just couldn't get excited about her. You always say that elections are about the people that turn up, but a lot of research shows that no, it's really people will often come out to vote against somebody, and there were very few Democrats, I should say, who were like on fire for Kamala Harris, no matter what they may have told you about it before, during, and after.
Yeah, and now that I think about it, Pluff is right and also wrong. Biden did F the Democrats, but he didn't do it in the summer of 2024. He did it in 2023 when he and his team insisted on running for re-election. And then the Democrats F themselves by not making him run through primaries. He had competitors. He had RFK. He had Marianne Williamson, although I don't know how quite serious she was. But they could have had a primary. They could have let their own voters decide.
Oh, no. That's
I,
not.
I,
No, no,
I,
no,
I,
no. That's
yeah.
why we have superdelegates.
Exactly. So yeah, the Democrats rigged the process so that Biden would be the nominee, and the rest is history. I got to get into this a little bit because I had so much fun with this morning on X, previously known as Twitter. Fox News' Joe Concha said Pluff helped run a patently horrible campaign, and of course, to save his own skin, passes the buck. Pluff thought skipping the Al Smith dinner was a good idea, thought skipping Joe Rogan was a good idea, thought Tim Walz was a good idea,
Oh, well,
thought
that's all
Liz
you have to say.
Cheney was a good idea. Scott, is that fair to Pluff? Isn't the only thing worse than pulling Harris from the Joe Rogan show, letting her appear on the Joe Rogan show?
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly. Now, I'll agree with the Tim Walz thing. I mean, that if that was Pluff's idea, that was a super bad idea.
Oh, man, Governor Jazz
But
hands, yeah.
at that point, he must have been desperate. And at that point, I mean, within minutes after accepting the job, he must have been desperate. I think David Pluff is a political genius for everything that he kept Kamala Harris from doing. Like, and why am I now saying Kamala? It's Kamala. Everything. See, when you just brought this up at the beginning of the show, I'm like, I thought we had a contractual agreement that we don't have to talk about these people anymore. But anyway, yeah, I think anything he kept her, any live thing, anything where she's going to have to face unscripted, question response kind of things, that was brilliant. Keep her away from all of that. That was the smart thing to do. And when he says, oh, well, 107 days, trying to beat Donald Trump is a nightmare, only in hindsight, at the time when they were first going into it, like you point out, like everybody was, I mean, remember, this woman won the nomination in a long weekend of phone calls. I mean, so everybody was convinced that basically this is not the second coming of Barack Obama. This is the second coming of Hillary Clinton, only pretty-ish, cosplay pretty, so but they really thought, oh, this is finally a woman is going to get to be president of the United States. Nobody could have won with Kamala Harris. Nobody is that good. There's no political consultant who is that skilled in it. It reminds me of the way that whole thing turned. Do you remember the scene in Braveheart where Mel Gibson's character, William Wallace, unites the clans and then they go to battle and then Robert the Bruce betrays him and Bruce's army turns and doesn't go into the field of battle, turns and rides away slowly. That's what it must have felt like for the Democrats. And all of a sudden, all these cheerleaders are super excited. I'm going to slightly disagree with the assumption that it's not really about turnout. It's about turnoff. It's the people who don't come to the polls for your candidate who are the biggest threat to the candidate.
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, and
it's not what I said, but I meant to say.
It's those people who would normally, if it's the yellow dog Democrats, that if you had nominated a yellow dog, is it blue dog or yellow dog? I can never remember the color of the dog. But if you had done that, you would have gotten, it's like an automatic vote for Democrats. Just don't tick us off. But by the way they brought her in and by the fact that they brought her in and who she was, a lot of stalwart Democrats said, no, not showing up for this.
Yeah. I'm going to echo what both of you guys said. Pluff didn't have too little time. He had Kamala Harris. There's no getting around what a bad candidate she was. In fact, I'd go a little further and say that every step of the way along her ill-fated campaign, Pluff made the best decision possible, but only in the sense that the alternatives were worse, which I think is what Scott was just saying. The thing is, even a great artist can only be as good as the materials they have available to work with. So imagine Michelangelo having to create David out of Play-Doh, or if Da Vinci had crayons to create the Mona Lisa, or if the French had to build Notre Dame out of Lincoln logs. This was Pluff's dilemma, and the only reason this is newsworthy is his ego is still so big that he thinks that with enough time, he could have made a winner out of the worst presidential candidate since the last two of these guys nominated. All right, that's your right angle on that, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.